Hello, welcome back to another episode of The Towel Boy, where we try to give you the cleanest takes in sports. Today, we're just talking a little bit, uh, going to give our thoughts and talking about just all things NBA, kind of rambling. I don't have a super strict outline, so wherever my thought tangents are going to go, that's where they're going to go, right? I think this is a good time to we're at that, about that mid-season point. All-Star Weekend just happened, right? So it's about that break in the year where a little bit over halfway of the game's been played, but usually that's where you break it up to where now we know who's going to be serious leading into the playoffs, who's not, who's going to be tanking, right? So we're going to talk about some things that are hot in the NBA world. I'm going to talk about All Star Weekend, talk about the topic of tanking, just talk about some of the things that have I've just been seeing things I've liked and I haven't liked about the NBA this season. The first thing I want to talk about today is going over All Star Weekend. You know, there's been a lot of talk all about All Star Weekends dying. New ideas, old ideas, what they don't work, right? It's not as exciting as it once was. And to an extent, I do agree. But I also think that this year's All Star game was fantastic. The 3-point shoot, part of it was weird this year. NBC wanting the Olympics to take the spotlight, so having the games and all the events start early, kind of weird. The Rising Stars Challenge was fun. Dylan Harper and Ron Harper taking the shots over each other. That was fun. The 3-point contest always is pretty fun. Dunk contest. Here's my take on the dunk contest. First off, we're at the point now where human evolution to this point, we've seen almost every dunk. Almost every dunk. Right? There's not going to be anything that wows us or completely shocks us. I think that's part of it. Another thing is, I think we just need to be okay with some years the dunk contest is going to be awesome, and some years it's not. And you just gotta today's day and age, especially with social media, and I see it on Twitter, right? I follow NBA Twitter probably way too much, but we just love to compare and to complain everything about everything rather than just enjoy what's going on. Yes, the dunk contest this year, I agree, was kind of lame. And then there's people like, oh, the stars will never do it. Blah 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 blah. Stephen A. Smith's dumb, being all like, I blame LeBron James. But at the same time, it's a fact. I think that if those same stars, if LeBron went out there to do the dunk contest, then people would be shitting on them for having lame dunks. Or that's my biggest take. Especially people are looking for something to complain about. And this is gonna be a side tangent, but it's something I feel super strongly about, and I'm going to talk about it in other areas, but people are looking for things to complain about rather than just enjoying the awesome things that are going on. I think this is super prominent in basketball, more than anything. In the NFL, you see the old legends uh, praising the new generation. I mean, obviously he's not as old, but Tom Brady goes on every week talking about how awesome these players are. Some criticism for what they need to do, but he's celebrating the game and where it's moving forward. Then you get people like Shaq or Barkley or old people talking about how back in my day we did this, or players don't care or don't try. They don't promote people on Twitter doing all the time looking for, oh, this person doesn't reach the certain BPM, whatever. And it bothers me so much because I think it ruins the game as a fan. And so that's been one thing that's kind of like a resolution for me for this NBA season, was to try to view the NBA as a league more as a fan rather than an analyst. If you know me, I love looking at advanced stats. I like looking at analytics. One of my favorite passions to do is I love to go super in depth scouting, right? Obviously, I'm not a professional. I don't get paid to do it, but it's a hobby. It's a passion of mine to do all these things. But when you look at all of the especially like if you're on NBA Twitter, like the spreadsheets FC versus like eye test, but like when you don't look at the game as a fan, then sometimes you just take away the magic of the moment. I think uh, a great example is when you look at Paolo Banchero. I think he's a great example. Whereas this year he has not been that great. I 1000%, 1000%, he has not been that great. But last year and years before, people are like, "Oh, his plus minuses and this and this." But then at the same time, it's like I'm watching this dude drop 50 points in the playoffs. I don't care what his uh Darko is or whatever. Like I'm watching him give everything, and he's being a beast as a 22-year-old. Previous seasons, again, this year he has not been as good as I would want. Right? But just looking at things as a fan, if I'm watching somebody, that dude's nice. I like it. One person who I'm gonna always be like that, and I can admit his faults. I know his things, but Trae Young, right? Dude's pulling up from 30 feet, having crazy passes. It's fun for me to watch. Can I understand that? Yes, that probably is not the most winning player to build a franchise around. 1000%. But also, I'm not a GM. I'm not building a team. Simple minded. I like when ball goes in the basket and cool passes happen. I like it when he's throwing a lob to Jalen Johnson. So that's been one thing I've been trying to work on this year, and it's made the viewing experience for me this year more fun. But that was a big tangent. Relating it back to the dunk contest. Dunk contest was lame, but also I think if you could try to just enjoy the moment, the experience, it'll be more fun, right? I cannot stress enough though how much I enjoyed the All-Star game, the actual game. Like, man, it was really cool. It was really refreshing because I'm sure everyone has seen people talking about All-Star game is dead. People don't care. Like the post conference when they were asking Anthony Edwards, "Are you going to try?" He's like, "It is what it is." Um, and people love to hate on Adam Silver, and there's things that I definitely don't think he's good at, but I don't think he's as awful as a lot of people do as a commissioner. But the new format, I didn't love how they did it. I didn't like how they picked teams on paper, the world versus the two USA teams. Dude, it worked so well. People played like it was the most competitive All-Star game. Like the first 3 games, championship game, whatever. The first 3 games was the most competitive All-Star game I can remember. Like 2 buzzer beaters, some comebacks. We saw some of the best playing with our All-Stars. It was awesome. And this person who said that they were going to take it the most seriously and they're going to carry that on was Victor Wembanyama, and I gained so much respect. Like, I think he's going to be the future face of the league, like everybody else does. He's kind of accepted that role, and I think it was really cool this weekend to really see that. Um, they've asked him about being the face of the league, and he said that's something that'd be cool. I'm going to work towards it. I want to push the game of basketball. This dude loves basketball. That and from the very first moment, dude, he won the tip. He posts up, 2-hand dunk, comes down next possession, boom, splashes a three. Right, first game, setting the tone. I loved it. The post game interview, Anthony Edwards going, dude, Wemby set the tone. Right, we were gonna play, but Wemby's playing so hard. I'm not gonna not be the one playing hard. Wemby yelling at people about missing defensive rotations. He was visibly angry. Like, it was awesome. And that was what basketball is supposed to be about. You're supposed to go out there and compete at every level. And I loved it. And it seemed like I liked kind of there's the young USA team and the old heads, right? The young guys went out there, they wanted to prove something. Hey man, my name is Cade Cunningham and I'm here, right? Tyrese Maxey, I'm here. Then the old heads, LeBron, Steph, KD, went out there like it's not your league yet, right? And that was really cool to watch. I really liked watching that. Obviously, Kawhi was unbelievable. And just a side note on Kawhi, I think he's been the best player in the NBA since December. It's been so fun to watch him. Uh, he's been the best player in the NBA. Like, it's been crazy to see what he's been doing on a night in, night out basis. Even with the Clippers kind of blowing it up, he's like, I'm going to go out there and hoop still. And I want to see them win the play in just so Kawhi can keep playing. And I've never been the biggest Kawhi guy, but this year's been fantastic to watch. That 31-point quarter, or game or whatever, was one of the most jaw dropping, just like, wow, this is special moment in an All Star game that I can remember in my lifetime. So the All Star game was awesome. But I don't want them to do World versus USA. I do think whenever there's a USA versus a World, it creates some sort of competition. But there's just not enough good players from the world, I think, to make a full All-Star team. I've been a defender of him. Şengün looked lost out there. Deni Avdija was one of the worst All-Stars I've ever seen on an All-Star court. Like, these people did not deserve to be out there. I'm sorry, get Norman Powell off my All-Star screen. That might sound like some hater stuff, and I guess it kind of is, because I don't want to watch those guys play during my All-Star game. And I think if we go back, tradition is awesome. I think tradition actually, people like to go away, try new things. Tradition is cool. So I think if we could do some sort of East and West divide it into 4 teams, whatever it is, but it's still the East versus the West. I think with this new format of playing, because if you think about it, some people have said this already, but like usually the All Star game, there's some competitive nature in that fourth quarter. First three, they kind of go through the motions. The fourth quarter, that competitive spirit kicks in. This was basically like saying, hey, what if we just skip the first three quarters? We're playing one quarter. It's going to be the competitive. You gave me four fourth quarters of an All Star game. I'm taking that all day. So if we can split up East and West in some sort of division for the All Star game in the future, I think we have something cooking. I think Adam Silver's got something on his hands to keep the All Star weekend alive because I don't want the All Star weekend to die, but I do agree that there's been less spirit and less enthusiasm about it in the past few years. But overall, I love the All Star game. All Star weekend as a whole, whatever, but the game really lived up to expectations for me. I loved it. Next thing I wanted to talk about, I kind of went on a tangent, was people being so negative about just watching the game, right? Man, I already talked about it, so I don't want to go into it, but I'm talking about Twitter mostly, right? And I need to remove myself from the Twitter world where there's awesome things going on. I love that community, learning about the game and all that stuff versus just basketball fans. There's some people who just like to watch basketball casually and watch a few games here and there. And honestly, we've there's the people on the Twitter they're talking about if you don't know the analytics, like why do you not understand blah blah. So and there's some people who are like I just watched the game. And I feel like we got to come to the middle. And this is just like a me thing, and I'm just rambling. I don't really think it makes sense what I'm saying, but it's something I feel strongly about. It's just basketball is a game that we all love. It's a beautiful thing that brings people together. And I hate when there's any sort of divisiveness. Like, man, we can all agree. Like, you don't have to take one side in the other. I think as a society, we choose one side versus the other, politically, socially, whatever it is. And it's kind of carried over into the sports world, which I hate. Like, I'm going to use the example that I used earlier. You can agree that Trey Young is a fun point guard, but also be like, you're not winning a championship with him as your number one. I don't think that's crazy to say, right? You can go out and say that the Boston Celtics are a really good team this year above expectations. I don't think they're going to win a championship. Or like you don't have to be like, "Oh, you're wrong, you're stupid." You can come in the middle. And I think that's one thing that's kind of been sad for me this year that it's made it almost less appealing for me to watch the NBA this year just because of all these things. That's going to segue into my next topic. I will admit, I feel like I have watched slightly less this year, and I've been less enthralled with the NBA as a whole this year. I don't know what it is. Like, there's just something that's just not quite as exciting to me as previous years. Like previous years, I would come home and I would watch hours and hours of just League Pass. I still watch League Pass every night, whatever it is. I still watch daily, but for some reason, it's just less exciting for me this year. Couple factors that can go into that. Starting a new job, life things happen, right? You get busy. You can't just watch a random 5 p.m. Nets versus Mavericks game, right? That's just kind of how it goes. I think a big reason for it, everybody knows I'm a huge Memphis Grizzlies fan. The last few seasons have just been exhausting. So when your team is kind of just having so many storylines like the Grizzlies have, it's hard to be as in tune to the whole league, right? I won't lie. Trading Jaren sucks. The jaw debacles, always being hurt, like that makes it taxing and tiring to be a fan of the Grizzlies, which makes it harder to be a fan of the NBA. That being said, I still think the NBA is a great product. I think people who complain about the NBA are dumb, don't appreciate what they're watching. There's so many good players on every team. Appreciate the greatness that's going on, right? Appreciate the greatness that's going on. A couple now, those are some of the big things. The next topic that's been big in the basketball world is the topic of tanking. I don't have much to say that hasn't been said already. This year, it feels like tanking has started way earlier, and it has ruined the basketball product that you are watching. Watching the Utah Jazz play good for 3 quarters and then sitting Lowry Markkinen and Jaren Jackson stinks. Watching the Washington Wizards, who suck already, not play their young guys and just playing random 10-day contracts, that's not fun to watch. But also, as a fan, you don't have to watch those tanking teams. You can go watch the competitive teams that are still being competitive. Tanking is hard. I think there's always going to be tanking. There's probably solutions. Smarter people than me can figure it out. But also, like I said, I love to scout. This is the best draft class we've had in years. So if I was a GM, I would probably tank as well, right? I want a top 5 pick. I want a top 10 pick. If I'm the Pacers and I can get in Cam Boozer, a Darren Peterson, and AJ Demancia, who comes back next year with Hallie, and Zubac, I'm gonna lose games on purpose. That's just the nature of the beast. And it sucks as a fan, but as an organization, that's kind of what you have to do. So I don't really think I have a full take other than I hate watching tanking teams, but also I understand why it happens. Those are all like the basketball topics I wanted to talk about. I just want to talk about a couple things that I think are cool, some fun storylines, and then I want to hear what you guys have thought of the NBA season so far. I'm gonna go a couple more in videos. If you guys don't know, I have a blog, hoopsandstuff.blogspot.com, where I gave a preview of every division, gave my bold takes, my predictions for the season. At the end of the year, I'm gonna go over all those, review those, but I would love if you guys go and check those out. Uh, Again, hoopsandstuff.blogspot. I'll put a link to the blog in the description, but I'm just going to talk about some storylines that I think are really cool. I'm going to start in the Eastern Conference. I'm not going to go team by team, but I'm going to talk about some of the teams, some of the players, whatever it is. The Detroit Pistons having the second best record in the NBA is crazy. I predicted they were going to be one of those teams who were good last year, small fall back, whatever. Man, I was wrong. They're awesome. They're so awesome. I have to admit it, I was wrong. I thought Cade was a good all-star. Man, he might be a superstar. He is so good, so fun. Turnovers are there, but who cares? He's leading this team. Cade Cunningham, I think, is going to be a superstar. I think right now, after the Stephs, LeBrons, KDs, you have Ant, you have Wimby. I think Cade can be in that discussion to be in that next tier. I think Cooper Flag can be in that next tier of like the faces of the league, right? Shea, obviously, Jokic, but whatever. Oh, and like the Pistons have been awesome. In my blog, if you would go see, my most improved player prediction was actually Jalen Duren. And he might win the award. He first time All-Star. He's been a beast. It's been so fun. Their defense, like when they're not clicking offensively, they're so good defensively that they're still gonna beat you up. And it's so awesome to watch. They play hard every night. Second best record in the NBA. They're half a game behind, I think, half a game behind the Thunder, who started out at a historic pace. So it's really cool to watch. Staying in the East, the Boston Celtics. Watching with like I thought that they were going to be in the playoffs. I thought they were going to be better than some people did because they still have Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Jaylen Brown, all these people. But to be second place in the East, it's a cool storyline. I talked about in an earlier video, Jaylen Brown might be an MVP candidate. He's slowed down a little bit since then, but he's still going to be an All NBA player, showing that he can be a number one option. A storyline that's going to maybe come up: does Tatum come back if they make the playoffs? I don't think it would be smart for his health and choice. We've seen people come back too early from Achilles or calves, but who can blame him for trying to want to win a championship? But an off-season storyline that I'm looking forward to is no matter what they say, dynamic is going to change. Jaylen Brown, Finals MVP, might be a first-team All-NBA, or proven he can be the number one option. What's that dynamic going to be like when Tatum comes back? Because we all know this is Tatum's team, right? So what is that dynamic going to be like when he comes back with Jaylen Brown? They are going to say it's all good, whatever. But I'm curious to see if there's anything that changes. So that's an interesting thing I want to talk about, or I'm looking forward to, right? The Knicks, they went through their lull. They're pretty decent. Cavs started out slow. I think they're going to pick it up. That Harden Donovan Mitchell duo looks really good the first couple of games. I'm really excited to see how that goes. Raptors, I predicted were going to be better than consensus. They have been. Ingram, Scotty, really fun to watch. I wish they would have made a bigger move at the deadline to really push, but they're still a really good team. Joel Embiid doesn't look like MVP Embiid, but he's still one of the maybe second best center in the NBA, really, maybe. Sixers are fun. VJ Edgecombe has been awesome. Sixers cool. Magic not as cool, right? They have not figured it out. Franz, Paolo, they're going to make a decision there at some point, and it's going to be interesting. They're not going to be able to pay Suggs and Anthony Black and everybody. They have too many people to not be to be in the play-in. So that's a storyline. One storyline I loved watching. I think we've all loved watching the Charlotte Hornets become a fun, competitive team, right? They haven't won all the games. They started out really slow, but their point differential, all these things, LaMelo, Miller, Knipple. I love Musa Diabate, how hard he plays, he rebounds. But Knipples maybe win Rookie of the Year. I like watching LaMelo. I like watching Brandon Miller. They're a fun team. They're a team next year. I think we're all going to be like, boom, they're going to be ready for next year. I hope they make the playoffs. They've been a really fun team to watch. The Milwaukee storyline with Giannis, who knows what happens. I'm liking watching Michael Porter Jr. in this role, even though the Nets suck. Still, he's been fun. He's been fantastic. I think Jordi Fernandez of the Nets is one of the best coaches in the NBA. I hope they can get him a real team soon. Um, Pacers are worse than I thought they were going to make the playoffs. That was like one of my bold takes. Without Hallie, they're still going to be a good team. They are horrendous to watch. Those are some of the storylines I liked watching. Some of the East. I feel like I want to give my predictions for the playoffs coming up, but East. The Pistons are young, but they've proven they can do stuff. Celtics, I'm not sure. I think they can still do it. Knicks and Cavs, I believe they can make the conference finals. So those four teams are the real teams. And then the dark horse, to me, I think the 76ers are a true championship threat if they can get everybody healthy at the same time. Moving on to the West, the Thunder. I think it's cool. We've seen now that whenever Shea's been gone for a few games before the All-Star break, they just aren't as good offensively. Obviously, you're losing one of the best players of all time, so you're going to be worse. But it's proving that he is more important than some people say, right? Last year, there was like, man, the Thunder are just good without Shea, which is true. They would still make the playoffs without Shea. But he's historic. The efficiency that he's doing things on, we've never seen. Shea is awesome. I'm not one that's going to take for granted the greatness of some of these players. The Sheas, the Lukas, the Giannis's, the Jokic's. Even though they all have their slight flaws, I'm not taking for granted any of those players because they're so amazing. The Spurs, man. I was wrong about the Spurs. I did not see them being this good, this competitive. They're a true championship team. They're a threat. And it's not just Wimby. They've built a great team around them. I like watching the Spurs play. Do I think they're a year away from being ready for the big moment? I do. I really do. I think they can, depending on the bracket, they can make the conference finals. I don't think they're a finals contending team yet, just because the West is so strong and they haven't had the bumps and bruises that you typically see. No matter what people say, playoff experience matters. The Thunder were kind of the exception to the rule a little bit last year, but you see a team have to take the beating before they get back up and are ready to go. And I think the Spurs are going to be like that. But Wimby he's going to be the face of the league. Hopefully he can stay healthy for his career. Nuggets are fun to watch. I love the season Jamal Murray's having. Great that he was an all-star, even though he was not very good in the all-star game. Jokic is doing Jokic things. We all know that. The Rockets need a guard. And if you saw the burner stuff with Kevin Durant, that's a funny storyline in itself. He seems like kind of a scumbag teammate, but whatever. He's a great player. The Rockets need to lean into Kevin Durant being their scorer. Building around Şengün, I thought might be the move, but Kevin Durant just needs to take over if they want to be a true championship team. And please, Ime, please, just let Reed Shepherd go. Like, I get there's the defensive question marks, but this is one of those analytics versus watching and all this. I'm watching Reed Shepherd and he's getting it going offensively. Y'all need offensive punch, especially in that backcourt. Let Reed Shepherd off the hook a little bit, please. That's one thing I want to look for. Please. Lakers, I don't think they're a true championship team. LeBron, Luka, Austin Reeves, awesome. They don't have enough around those guys for the playoffs. Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards, one of my favorite basketball players to watch. I said he might be the fourth best player in the world. I feel like you can make that argument. Suns, also very fun to watch. Way better than expectation. It's so crazy. Looking at the standings right now, I just pulled it up on my computer as I'm recording this. The Suns are in the 7th place. They're in the play-in spot with 32 wins. 32 wins play-in spot. That would be tied for the 5th seed in the East. So the West is just ridiculous, right? Other than that, there's no real storyline I like to talk about in the West. The Warriors, Steph is still Steph. I hate Draymond Green. Boom. That's all you got to say. Blazers, I don't know what they feel like a team that's scarily on that Heat Hawks trajectory of just playing purgatory. Too good to lose, but not good enough to really win in the West. Clippers blowing it up was interesting. Even they were on that win streak, but I think they just had that recognition. Even though uh doing so good on our last 15 games or whatever it was before they made those trades, we're not going to win a championship. So I respected them blowing it up. Kawhi didn't care, right? That's kind of those things. Grizzlies, I've talked about it. Man, what a disappointing season. Mavericks, I have to be ecstatic with how the season is going. You're losing some games, and Cooper Flag, it looks like he's going to be one of them once. I am so I can't. I might have to make a video talking about it, but Cooper Flag has been one of the most impressive rookies I've ever seen. The things he's doing night in, night out, offensively, defensively, he's not always like you can. Maybe he doesn't make this one driving layup, but the fact that he's taking these, he's like you can see and everything you know about the kid that he's going to do all of the things that make a superstar. I think he's going to be a superstar. I love Cooper Flag. He's awesome. I'm excited to see what the Mavericks compare in the draft with him. I also hate to say this because he's a longtime Grizzlies enemy. Klay Thompson as a Maverick has been really cool. Seeing him mentor Flag, take his role whether on the bench, off starting games, but just being kind of like the veteran leader, uh, being that mature voice. It's been cool to see that. I've always hated him because the Grizzlies and the Warriors have always had a little smack talk. I guess when especially when the Grizzlies had their prime years of 2 years really, but it's been cool to see Klay take that role. The Jazz, they're making moves to where they say they think they can be ready to compete next year, which I think is fun. As a fan of an organization, you don't want to be bad forever. In the NBA world, if you are a Twitter guy or advanced nerd, you can always be thinking stacking picks. I want to get these picks, blah blah blah. Think about the 40-year-old who doesn't care about draft capital and is just going to a Utah game. They want to see those teams be good. So it's fun that the Jazz are trying to do that. They're banking a lot on Keontae George not being a one-season wonder. They're not going to trade Lowry anymore. They got Jaren now. They're going to bank on those guys, plus Ace Bailey and Walker Kessler are going to be able to compete. I like seeing a team do that. Pelicans, I don't know how they're so bad, but they are. Don't know why they didn't trade people. Same with the Kings, right? Man, so that's just a brief. I talked for, let's see, I don't know, probably 30 minutes, just a bunch of nonsense, really rambling, talking about where I think the NBA is kind of at right now, what I thought about All Star Weekend tanking, how we view the game as fans, some of the teams. Like I super quickly just talked about some of the things I'm liking, I'm seeing. I would love to know what you guys think. Comment below, please. What have been some of your favorite storylines? How do you feel about tanking? How do all these things? I would love to know everybody's opinion. Please let me know in the comments below. Again, please go check out my blog. I'll put the link in the description. As always, thank you guys for tuning in, for listening to me, and until next time, have a good one.